What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to be discussing even more new features in iOS 26. We're going to talk about why Apple is suing a fellow YouTuber, a crazy color that might be coming to the iPhone 17, new details on the iPhone Fold, a crazy AirTag story, and much more. And as always, if you want to continue staying up to date with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and also check out the Apple Den Discord server. Okay, so let's start by talking about iOS 26, and more specifically, the public beta, because as you guys know, in last week's Apple Weekly episode, I said to not expect the iOS 26 public beta just yet, and it turns out that my prediction was true. So it was a hot take. A lot of people disagreed with me because almost everybody on the internet thought that the public beta was coming last week. So it's good to see that my prediction turned out to be true, and we are expecting to see the public beta most likely next week, potentially the following week. We'll talk more about the specifics for the dates here in a little bit, but I want to start this video off by talking about even more new iOS 26 features and changes that I discovered this week. And the first one is a really interesting one. So as you guys know, for the past couple of weeks, I have been traveling. So that's why these Apple Weekly episodes have fallen on Sundays instead of Saturdays. I've gotten back late on Friday both weeks. So anyway, so this is a new feature here that is actually a Siri suggestion. And I did not see this in iOS 18. I believe this is something brand new in 26 that I didn't even see until the third beta here. So it says, stay connected while traveling. A flight was found in mail. So it picked up on a flight email in the mail application, and it says that you can turn on data roaming or purchase a travel eSIM. And when you tap on that, it takes you right here to this page that says stay connected while traveling. You can use data roaming with your carrier or get a travel eSIM, and you have the option right here for Verizon data roaming in my example, and then you can do that from there or learn more about travel options. So that is pretty cool, especially if you are somebody who has multiple eSIMs. It will basically, prompt you to switch eSIMs when you're traveling or when you're getting back home. And on that note, somebody on Reddit actually posted that his eSIM did auto switch after getting back from traveling. He said this: while traveling between countries, my iPhone auto switches between my two eSIMs when I arrive at my home country. And he was basically saying that he doesn't want that to happen. So it's just on by default and he wants to turn that off. But that is a new feature here in iOS 26 that I found to be pretty interesting. And it did happen to me, shortly after I did get back on July 12th, as you can see here. And here is another new feature that I just discovered in iOS 26. So now if you go to share your location with somebody in the messages application, and when you go to select like the amount of time you want to share that location with them, you have an option to choose how long. It now shows in the upper left-hand corner in orange, and it says until the end of the day. So that is new. And then when you go over to their name on the actual map, it now shows here sharing your location along with how many hours or minutes are remaining until the location expires. Like for example, in this example, like this one, I set it for 24 hours. So it shows there's only 16 hours remaining until the location sharing ends. Now there's also a change if you go into your settings and then into cellular and you go down to your cellular data, there's a new little glyph icon here for apps only on watch. So if you wear an Apple Watch and you use cellular data for certain applications on your watch, those will now show up with a new glyph icon here in 26 beta 3. Now, one of the main bugs I've had in iOS 26 that has still not been resolved is related to voicemails with call screening. So you know how now with call screening in iOS 26, if you get a call, it will basically just say, it's asking the person on the other end of the line what they're calling for, and it will kind of transcribe in real life what the other person is saying. But I found that still with beta 3, it continues to show that somebody is leaving a voicemail for like hours sometimes after the voicemail has already been left. So it's more of a visual bug, but it is very annoying that it's still here in beta 3. So hopefully that does get fixed by the time the public beta gets released and developer beta 4 as well. And by the way, if you have not picked up the Lustra wallpaper pack yet, that is this wallpaper pack you're seeing right now, I would highly suggest you go ahead and get that. And you know what? I'll just throw in a promo code. Just say I made it. So put in the promo code I made it and I'll give you 20% off of this wallpaper pack because I think you guys are going to love it. They're super high quality wallpapers that go really well with liquid glass. There's also some amazing ones for the Mac as well that are fully sized for Mac screens, 5K. So that is also something you should check out. It's over on brandonbutch.com. I'll leave a link down in the description below if you want to help support the channel. Anyways, also this week we saw the new emojis that are coming with iOS iOS 26 in the spring of next year. So typically the emojis come out in the 0.4 update, so probably 26.4, and again, that usually comes out in the spring. So you can see here, according to Unicode 17, we have a rough look at what these emoji will look like. Now keep in mind, the Apple emojis always look way better than what you see in the Unicode like standard. So obviously it's going to be a better looking version of these, but you can see kind of what these look like. So we have a trombone, treasure chest, we have a hairy creature is what they're calling it, apple core, orca, ballet dancers. You can just see the different ones they have right here. So pretty funny one, this little face right here. That's actually been, fun fact, that's been an emoji, a sticker in my Discord server, the Apple Den, for a long time now. So now it's gonna be funny to see it be an actual emoji, even though it's been in the Discord server for a long time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the new emoji in 26.4. And by the way, that is also the same, release where we're gonna see the new Siri features finally come out. So the more personalized Siri, all of those, features that have been delayed time and time again, those are gonna be in 26.4, at least for now. So don't keep your hopes up too high, because Apple has pushed that back a lot, but that is when we are expecting it. Now, speaking of Apple Intelligence, Meta and Zuck has stolen even more AI talent from Apple. So this week we heard from Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg that Meta poached 2 more Apple AI executives. So Meta hired Mark Lee and Tom Gunter for Meta's Superintelligence Labs team. So this, of course, comes after Meta paid Ruming Peng, which was the chief of Apple's LLM team, over $200 million. So that was big news last week. And now this week we hear this. So, Mark Lee was known as Peng's first hire at Apple. And then Tom Gunter, who was a distinguished engineer at Apple, was regarded as one of the group's most senior employees. So again, 2 highly, useful, like great employees at Apple in the AI, world. They were working on Apple Intelligence and the LLM models, the foundation model. So 2 key players, again, poached by Meta. So it's going to be interesting to see how this whole story plays out. Zuck is taking AI super serious, and it just seems like Apple is losing a lot of its top talent to Meta at this point in time. So we'll see where this goes from here, but it doesn't look great for Apple, but I still have to have hope. Anyways, jumping back to iOS 26 beta 3. So as far as the performance goes, really not a lot has changed since last week. So I did talk about the performance quite a bit last week, and it's still quite laggy, especially when your battery gets low. Like iOS is always laggy, don't get me wrong, when your battery is low and when you go in low power mode. But on 26 beta 3, it's like another level of lag. Like somebody even asked me when I was out in Boston at a TikTok event this past week, when I handed them my phone and I was low on battery and low power mode, they were like, what phone is this? Like, that's what they said, because they thought it was like an old phone. It was a 16 Pro, but it was so laggy and it was so slow that they thought it was like an old phone. So, obviously it's beta software. Obviously you're going to have issues like that. So I'm not complaining. It's just, that's kind of the state we're at right now with beta 3. Performance is just still simply not there yet. It is just not ready for prime time. Obviously, it's not ready for public beta, obviously, which is why last week I said we're probably not going to see the public beta based on developer beta 3. It's just simply not ready, especially with the design, drama going on now with liquid glass. So yeah, performance, not great, nothing better this week. If anything, it's gotten a little bit worse, I would say, this week, but maybe it's just because I've been traveling and having low battery a lot. But as far as battery life goes, battery life, I've not been able to tell any difference from last week, so at least that is a good thing. I'll go ahead and grab my main device over here and take a look at the battery settings, and you can kind of see what we're working with here. So you can see today on Saturday, I've used 153% of my battery. So the average for this week has been 132%, so still over 100% battery. Right here on Thursday was my least used day, which was nice, but you can see the battery is still just crazy high. So we go over to this page here to see more details, at 191%, even on my lowest day here on Thursday, it was 110% of battery, which is quite high. You can see over 200 on multiple days here as well. So still not great for battery life. You can see here, even like Sound Connect, which is my Sony headphones, 17% of my battery, which is crazy. And by the way, I think this might be new here. So if you see under maps, so it shows it used 14% of my battery, but it also shows poor coverage during use. So it's basically telling me why the battery, it took up more battery this time versus usual, because I had poor coverage. So I had to use, the processor and the modem more to serve me that data, which led to more battery drain. So that's a pretty interesting little tidbit right there. But you can kind of see, again, battery life, just not great yet. So that's not expected for a third beta, but hopefully by beta 4 and public beta, we do see a decent sized improvement, which I'm hoping that we will. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So when can we expect to see iOS 26 developer beta 4 and iOS 26 public beta? So as I said last week, on, I believe I uploaded that video on the 13th is when I said don't expect the public beta this week, the week of the 14th, expect it next week or even the final week of July. So what I said last week still holds up this week. I still have the same belief as I had last week. I think that this coming week would be the earliest that we'd see iOS 26 public beta. So nothing has changed there. I do still believe that. So I think we're going to see iOS 26 developer beta 4 on Monday, the 21st. So we should be seeing that. And then we could see iOS 26 public beta as early as a couple of days later. So as early as Wednesday, the 23rd. Apple typically does not release a developer beta and then a public beta the next day for a major software update like 26. So I'm not expecting it to come just a day after the developer beta. I'm expecting it to come at least 2 days later. So the 23rd would be the earliest I'd think that we could see 26 public beta, or it could come as late as Monday, July 28th, a week after the release of developer beta 4. So it seems like the public beta, like I imagined last week, is going to be based off of the build of developer beta 4, which in theory should be a bit more stable and have a bit better battery life, and hopefully some of the design cues more figured out than it was with beta 3. Now, if you are still on iOS 18, we should also be seeing iOS 18.6 beta 4 next week. So I would expect to see that sometime in the early half of the week. And as far as the iOS 18.6 public release, it's been quite a while since we've had a public release for iOS, but I'm not expecting that in July at this point. It's possible to come in the final week, but at this point, I'm expecting iOS 18.6 to come at some point in August. And again, that is going to be a very minor update. But of course, all eyes are going to be down here on September when we're going to see the final public release of iOS 26, along with the new iPhones being introduced and released as well. Okay, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with by far the biggest story of the week, probably of the year at this point, and that is that Apple is suing YouTuber Jon Prosser over his iOS 26 leak. So as you guys might be aware, earlier this year, Jon Prosser over at FPT showed off a lot of iOS 26 leaks, and he claimed that they were the real thing. And it seems like they actually were the real thing. So he showed us the renders of the camera application. He told us basically about the liquid glass redesign coming. We saw a lot of information about iOS 26 well in advance of the beta, and it turns out that he obtained this information in a very shady way. And let me just be clear, Jon Prosser and everybody involved is innocent until proven guilty. These are just allegations from Apple in the lawsuits. And I'm just simply reading from this paper. And again, this is all alleged. So he is innocent until proven guilty. I just want to make that very clear. So anyways, this lawsuit alleges that Prosser offered another individual named Mike money or a future job opportunity in exchange for access to a company phone belonging to his friend Ethan Lipnick, who is now an ex-Apple software engineer. So Mike allegedly learned the Apple employee's iPhone passcode, and then he used location tracking to determine when he would be away from his house for an extended period of time, and then he broke into the iPhone, which was running a development version of iOS 26, which contained a, quote, significant amount of additional Apple trade secret information that has not yet been publicly disclosed. Apple says that Mike showed the software to Prosser over a FaceTime video call where Prosser screen recorded the call, then shared it with others, and also used it to create renders for his leak videos. And Apple says that it found out the details of what happened in April from an anonymous email from somebody who claimed to have seen Prosser's recording of the call and recognized the apartment of that ex-Apple employee, Ethan Lipnick. Apple also claims to have an audio note that was sent by Mike to Ethan Lipnick apologizing for the incident and claiming that this was all Prosser's idea. So of course, Lipnick was fired from Apple for failing to properly follow its policies around securing unreleased software, and now Prosser is facing either a hefty fine, jail time, or honestly, at the very least, probably just having to either shut down his YouTube channel or just stop posting about Apple completely. And by the way, Prosser did respond to this story on X, so he says this: "For the record, this is not how the situation played out on my end. Luckily, I have receipts for that. I did not plot to access anyone's phone. I did not have any passwords. I was unaware of how the information was obtained. Looking forward to speaking with Apple on this." And you can see that he follows that up by asking and kind of making sure that this is legit material. So this basically implies that Prosser was unaware of where this information came from. So again, it's all he said, she said at this point. That's why everything listed in there is just allegations at this point. So we'll have to see, what a jury decides, what a judge decides, if this does actually make its way to court. But in my opinion, this is probably not going to go to court. This has happened multiple other times. Multiple other leakers have had to basically stop posting Apple content after they got, sued by Apple. They didn't actually have to pay any damages or anything like that. They didn't have to have any fines or any jail time or anything like that. They just had to stop posting Apple content, Apple leaks. I guess you can see the complaints right here, actually. It says misappropriation of trade secrets under the Defend Trade Secrets Act, and then also violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So regardless of what happens, I'm really curious to see, what the repercussions are for Prosser in the scenario, or maybe nothing at all. Maybe he's just completely innocent. Apple, got maybe fake information, maybe somebody doctored something, and it's not actually Prosser's fault, it's somebody else's. We don't really know at this point. It's still early days. These are all just allegations made by Apple in this lawsuit. And speaking of leaks, let's talk about the iPhone 17, more specifically the colors that we could be seeing for the iPhone 17. And one of these colors is really crazy and a color we've never seen on an iPhone before. So according to Instant Digital on Weibo, he says that the iPhone 17 Pro might have a special color variant that is said to be connected to the iOS 26 liquid glass design, and that it's going to be white, but it will have different effects under different light. So I'm really struggling to see how Apple would actually make this into a color that people are going to desire, because when I think about like a more translucent, kind of like a changing color, kind of like those cars that you see with the crazy wraps that change colors, I just don't think I would want that on an iPhone. So I'll be curious to see if this actually comes true. However, we did also get a fresh report from Macworld this week in which they were able to obtain an internal document that reveals all of the color options for the upcoming iPhone 17, 17 Air, and the 17 Pros. So they're saying that the iPhone 17, the base model, is going to come in black, white, steel gray, green, purple, and light blue. The 17 Air is going to come in black, white, light blue, and light gold. And then the 17 Pro and Pro Max are going to come in black, white, gray, dark blue, and orange. And if we see an orange iPhone, I am going to jump for joy, because I've been wanting an orange Pro iPhone for the longest time. We've heard that leaked, probably for 5 years at this point. Like, it seems like every year we hear leaks about an orange iPhone. But the fact that we didn't really hear that until close to the time of the iPhone actually coming out makes me believe that it's actually possible this year. I think this is the year we could finally get an orange Pro iPhone, which I would be ecstatic about. But I might be the only one. I don't know. Would you guys like an orange Pro iPhone? I need to know your thoughts. But also keep in mind, Macworld did not mention this, special color that changes colors, under certain lights in their report. So we don't know if that's going to come true or not. Instant Digital has been right on leaks in the past, but I guess we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that. Now, speaking of the iPhone 17, we also got an additional leak this week that has me even more excited for the 17 Pro and Pro Max. And that's because, according to Mac Rumors, the 17 Pro and Pro Max might actually get the anti-reflective screen after all. So they said this: a reliable source that spoke to Mac Rumors said Apple suppliers have been able to achieve a high enough yield on the anti-reflective glass to support mass production. The iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max will get the new display technology, but it won't be coming to the iPhone 17 or 17 Air, which honestly I'm not very surprised by at all. I think that's kind of been the consensus for a while now, that if we did get the anti-reflective display, it would only be on the Pro model. So I am extremely excited for this, because I am a big Nano Texture stan at this point. So I cannot live without Nano Texture on my MacBook and on my iPad. So if we finally get something even remotely similar to that on the iPhone, I'm going to be pretty happy, where I don't have to see, reflection lights every time I move my phone. Now, looking a little bit further ahead to the iPhone Fold, which is now expected in 2027, Ming-Chi Kuo just recently said that it will indeed have a crease-free display. So he says this: my latest industry survey shows that in order to ensure that it can mass produce iPhone in the second half of 2026, Apple will adopt SDC, which is Samsung Display's crease-free display design scheme, not its own. The main reason for the folds caused by the folding mobile phone monitors is that the stress is concentrated due to repeated bending, which causes fatigue and permanent deformation of the material. Metal plates can disperse and control the stress generated by bending, reduce the risk of materials exceeding the elastic limit, and thus reduce the formation of the creases. So it seems like Samsung is going to start making these displays with those metal plates now. And then Kuo followed that up by saying, to better compete with the foldable iPhone, Samsung's new Galaxy Z Fold 8, which is coming in the second half of next year, will also adopt higher ASP laser drilled display metal plates with fine M tech serving as the exclusive supplier. So now it looks like Samsung is actually going to be the first to get that crease-free foldable phone. It seems like it's going to be out a year before Apple's iPhone Fold. So that'll be interesting to see because obviously Samsung is going to make the iPhone display, and it seems like the Z Fold, the Galaxy Z Fold is going to get it before the iPhone. So not too surprising there, but it will be really interesting to see how that plays out and if it's actually fully invisible now. So actually we have an update on the iPhone Fold because Mark Gurman just came out with a new report today indicating that the foldable will launch later next year, not in 2027. So he says this: when Apple introduces its first foldable iPhone at the end of next year, it will be entering a product category that's already 7 years old. And this time, Apple won't be debuting a radically new interface or transformative hardware. Instead, the device will offer a similar design to Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold line and use many of the same core components, including foldable OLED screens sourced from Samsung Display. However, Apple is aiming to make the inner display crease less visible and dramatically improve the hinge mechanism, as we heard from Kuo. Now, this iPhone Fold is expected to cost at least $2,000, and apparently with iOS 27, Apple is prioritizing software features that are tailored specifically for this new form factor. And also in the same report, Gurman gave us an update on the M5 iPad Pro, so apparently that's not just going to be a spec bump, we'll also have a minor design change. So it looks like we're going to have two front-facing cameras now. So there's now going to be a front-facing camera on the portrait end and also one on the landscape end. So this can be good for unlocking your device with Face ID. It could be easier for that so you don't cover it up with your finger, and also of course for FaceTime calls and video calls. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a man in St. Louis, Missouri had reported that a $56,000 sawmill was stolen from his job back in February. And when police arrested the thieves, thanks to the AirTag that was hidden inside the sawmill, everyone thought that that was the end of it. But that was only the beginning. And that's because investigators with the Maryland Heights Police Department kept digging, and they followed the trail to a property where detectives found even more stolen items, including golf carts and skid loaders. And back in February, with that $56,000 sawmill that was stolen, 2 people were arrested with robbery, but like Detective Andrew Lucas said, no investigation is ever fully done, and this one just kept growing because months later, now in July, a third suspect, a 47-year-old man, has been charged with felony burglary and stealing, but he claims that there's another side to his story. Anyways, the police say that this theft ring stretched across at least 3 different counties, but thanks to that AirTag, the valuable equipment, including that expensive sawmill, has been returned and is already back in use. And again, without the AirTag, all this stuff, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment, may have never been seen again. Anyways, that's it for Apple Weekly. I hope you guys did enjoy this episode. This was on a Sunday once again because I had another long travel week. I got in late Friday, so I was not able to get this video recorded until Saturday, and that's why you're seeing it now on Sunday. Also, if you guys are not following me over on Instagram, you should definitely follow me over there. I've been posting a lot of photos and videos and stories about my travels these past 2 weeks. So that's a good way for you guys to be updated on my kind of personal life, kind of professional life as well. But if you're not following me over there, it's just at Brandon Butch. It's always linked down in the description below of my videos. But anyways, I'm rambling. Thank you guys once again for watching, and I'll see you next time.